Welcome to the Townsend Institute podcast series, Tips, a show produced by the Townsend Institute at Concordia University, Irvine. This podcast provides tips into leadership, coaching, and counseling topics aimed at helping listeners grow in both their personal and professional lives. I'm Dr. John Townsend, psychologist, organizational consultant, and author of over 30 books, including the New York Times best-selling Boundaries series. I'm also the founder of the Townsend Institute, and I'm excited to introduce your podcast hosts, Townsend Institute Program Directors Dr. Ashley Andrew and Dr. Gilbert Fugit.
On this week's episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series, Gilbert sits down with former NHL player Clint Malarchuk. Clint played and coached over a decade in the National Hockey League. While his goaltending skills caught the attention of many, so did a 1989 life-threatening injury he sustained when he took a skate to the neck. We are thankful Clint not only survived that injury, but has gone on to author a book and speak to audiences around the world on a variety of topics, including mental health. At this time, we offer our listeners a disclaimer that this episode provides details of a traumatic on-ice injury, as well as thoughts surrounding an attempted suicide. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of suicide, we urge you to contact the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Time to send it over to my colleague and teammate, Gilbert. Let's get started.
Well, today on the Townsend Institute podcast series, we are so blessed to have our friend Clint Malarchuk with us, who has had an illustrious career in NHL and all kinds of different things he's done in life, but there's also some struggles that he's gone into. And today, Clint, I'd just love for you to start off and tell us just a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Well, my journey's been an up and down one, of course, and that's life. You know, we all can relate to that pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought, to play in the NHL was a dream come true. For me, it was just like, it's all I wanted. But I suffered with some mental illness, mostly, obsessive compulsive disorder, which ironically helped me get to the NHL because repetition, work ethic, got to get it right. And I think it helped me, and then it overtook my life and probably ended my career as well. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was my purpose, to be an NHL goaltender. And then I got to coach for 20 years after I retired. Wow. So I've been certainly blessed as far as, athletics and being in a sport that I dearly loved for my whole life. But yeah, then, things turned south in a lot of different ways for me with my mental illness. And I'm a suicide survivor. That's how deep and dark I went. And to be what I'm doing now, number one, to be alive and doing what I'm doing. And I always say, God spared me for those that are still suffering because I should be dead. 3 times I've almost died, and once by my own hand. So yeah, you wake up and you go, oh boy, something God ain't done with me yet.
Yeah.
I'm walking around with a bullet in my head. And so you get a different perspective on life. And so what I do now, being a mental health advocate, trying to save people from anguish and darkness and suffering in silence, to get help, to not do what I did, pull a trigger. It's what my purpose is. Yeah, playing hockey, making it to the highest level, having a decent career gave me a platform. It gives me some kind of credibility. And I say that humbly, but people love athletes. They love actors. They love movie stars, and that's how we're wired. So it gives me a bit of a platform. But, what I went through with my demons, dealing with mental illness, also now I realize why I had to have, God gave me the NHL. But he also gave me that cursed, dreaded panic attacks and anxiety and depression and OCD and, suicide and, attempt. Now I know why. It's to be where I am today. Purpose, my real purpose.
And Clint, I know for those our listeners that don't know, can you share, whatever you're comfortable with, what really started that game in 1989?
Well, yeah, I was predisposed definitely to OCD. I had OCD as a kid. Yeah. Looking back, I was never diagnosed with it. I definitely had anxiety and depression issues. But, that game, what Clint Malarchuk's known for is in 1989, playing for the Buffalo Sabres. And in a game, first period, I get an errant skate that sliced my jugular vein. And I saw the blood squirt. And you and I are sitting, 5-6 feet apart. And that blood squirted that far. Wow. And then, as your blood pressure just drops, and then it just gurgles out like a drinking fountain. And to see that and go, oh my God, I am dying. I am dying. And I prepared for death. I was praying. I told one of the trainers, call my mom, tell her I love her. So I totally prepared. So why I'm going into that detail is because it's important that people know that I had suffered trauma. Yes. And that is PTSD, as we call it. And I went 20 years of that undiagnosed. I came back 10 days later, played, manned up, cowboy up, got back and played.
And they celebrated that, right? In Buffalo?
Oh, yeah. I was a celebrity. I was like, I epitomized everything that blue collar sports town loved in an athlete: hardworking, gritty, no talent.
We had a little bit of talent, I think.
A little somewhere, but I didn't think I did. And I was very insecure. So I never thought I was very good. I just came back and became, and even to this day, I'm like a folk hero in that town, which is incredible. I mean, that's a long time ago. That's 1989. I'm not going to do the math, but I know it's 30 something, years. I really, really faltered after that. Different doctors and medications and, trying to get me back on track, and nothing worked. And then once I did get finally the right medication and the help, I was like, oh my God, is this what it feels like to be normal? And and I did great for about 15 years. And, unbeknownst to me, I just took my medication thinking that's all I have to do to feel good. But I lost contact with my psychiatrist because I was coaching and moving around. And I just thought, take this medication. But I didn't know your body can eventually get immune to it.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. And then another guy playing in the NHL cut his jugular vein. And I was getting bombarded by the media. Hey, what was you're the first and blah, and I'm reliving that. My meds aren't working. I started to drink to self-medicate, like numb that panic, numb the sadness, get happy, have a couple beers, anxiety, have a couple beers. And what happens is, what 2 beers or 3 beers would do, then it was, 20, it just get more and more and more. And, that's why they have so many what they call dual diagnoses, is because with mental illness, there's a huge correlation between mental illness and addiction. Okay. Because, because we are going through mental anguish or whatever it might be. And the booze worked. For me, it was just alcohol, but I know some people might have been a drug, but I was strictly a drinker, and that was my medication. And it wasn't like I'm drinking to party or chase women or anything like that. I mean, I was older, I had already done that.
Yeah. So you were just self-medicating this.
Absolutely, 100%.
And so it's almost like you kind of got re-traumatized or something when that happened in 2008, and then all the media and everything came back again. That caused a spiral again, it sounds like.
Well, the medication not working in my body anymore, me self-medicating, going, oh man, I just don't feel good. I'm anxious or depressed and drinking. And then, and I was never diagnosed with PTSD.
That's right.
And then one day I just have had enough. And, I didn't want to die. And when I pulled the trigger, I just wanted to kill the pain. In fact, I didn't even know if there was a bullet in the gun. And when the gun went off and I'm like, I should be dead. I didn't lose consciousness. The bullet got lodged in my skull. And I'm like, oh my God, I just shot myself. And I'm still alive. I'm still awake,
Yeah. What kind of feelings went through your mind when that happened?
I think shock. You just go into a shock. I can't believe I just did this. I should be dead. I'm awake. All these things. And it was like overwhelming. I was drinking. I'd probably been on like a 2-day bender with no sleep, just drinking. my mind going 100 miles an hour. And people might judge that comment and say, well, why wouldn't you sleep? And what are you doing? Well, you know what? If you got to walk a mile in a person's shoes, like with mental illness and anxiety or depression, it's usually with mental illness, it's not just one. Like if I have obsessive compulsive disorder, so with that, you get anxiety. With that, you're probably going to get depression. With that, you're eventually probably going to have panic attacks. And yeah, I had everything. I mean, I would go big or go home.
You went with the whole package.
Right? Yeah, do it.
Wow. Also, another thing you're known for, or they call you, is the Cowboy Goalie, and I love that. So, how did that come about?
You like that? Huh?
I love it. I was in rodeos as a kid and was never considered much of a cowboy, but you did this.
I grew up a cowboy.
Yeah.
Grew up doing all that roping, riding, and I loved it. It was my lifestyle. That's what I knew. And so all of a sudden you're playing hockey and then you're in the NHL, and it's kind of unique that this guy's wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat and shows up to practice and games, and he's this cowboy guy. And, it's not really the culture of a sport, it's a different sport if we're talking rodeo, but yeah, it was just, that was me. And, and then I started to get attention over it. And I'm like, what the heck's a big deal? This is how I grew up. Yeah. And so they labeled me the Cowboy Goalie, and I just rode the horse through it. I just whatever.
You did this while you were in the NHL, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they would never allow this today, I don't think.
No, there is a funny deal. I was riding in the Calgary Stampede in 87, 88 in there. And, obviously it's July, the Calgary Stampede, huge rodeo. And there's a picture that was in the paper of me flying through the air, getting bucked off a saddle bronc horse or a bareback horse. I can't remember. So no big deal. It's in the Calgary paper, the Calgary Herald. And I didn't know there's a thing called American Press or Associated Press. Well, it got picked up, and I was playing with Washington, and I was staying down at the rodeo grounds, and I get a message from the rodeo office. This is before cell phones, to call the general manager of the Washington Capitals. I'm like, oh, did I get traded or what? Because I had no clue that they would have seen this picture. And the title under the picture, Clint Malarchuk, Washington Capital goaltender flying through the air, something like that. And it was our general manager saying, what are you just giving me the whole tongue lashing? And I said, well, that wasn't me. That was a misprint. That was my brother.
They didn't even know you were doing that, huh? They didn't know that was happening.
Wow. No, they just thought I was ranching in the summer, typical, cowboy stuff, farmer, cowboy, and, relatively safe. They didn't know I was actually, pro rodeo.
I love it.
Well, I always got mad because they said Bo Jackson was the first guy to do 2 pro sports, right?
Yeah.
Back in that day. And I went, wait a minute. I was doing 2 sports too. But the thing is, back in the 80s, rodeo wasn't acknowledged as it is now. Now it's, it's a big sport.
Nike missed out on you, but also Stetson.
No,
Stetson.
I missed out on something, paycheck somewhere.
I love it. Well, and you also talk about how the cowboy mentality, right? Get it back on that horse, do all that.
Yep.
Really didn't help you with your mental health and when you got the neck injury and things, because you thought, okay, this happened, I got to get right back in there.
Yeah, you get bucked off a horse. What do? You get right back on to face your fears as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And that's why I came back as quick as I did. 10 days later, I'm playing. As soon as Stitches came out, I was back in playing. And that was the mentality. That was the mindset. And people ask me, would you have done it the same, knowing what we do know now about mental illness, PTSD and that? I think I would have. But you know what? No counseling was offered. And I didn't think of it either. Back then, it wasn't, it just
no
wasn't
counseling.
There.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I think I would have come back as quick, but I probably could have used some counseling or therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you wrote this book, The Crazy Game, How I Survived the Crease and Beyond. What prompted you to write that? And what type of response did you get?
You wake up out of a coma with a bullet in your head and you go, I should be dead, because they put me in an induced coma. And because I want me to move because, like I said, I didn't lose consciousness.
Yeah.
And so then I come out of the coma and I'm like, oh my God. And I was dabbling in a book at the time, but it was mostly a book on humor, funny stories, crazy stuff that, athletes do on the road and in airplane, airports and that. And I thought, wow, God spared me for those that are still suffering. So I thought, wow, I got to write. I got to go deep and dark. I got to tell all my darkness and suffering and anxiety and just turmoil, mental anguish and suicidal thoughts and acting out on a suicide attempt. So I just went 100%. I mean, the book is very, very raw. I mean, I put everything out there to the point where, Gilbert, it was a week before the book was going to come out on the bookshelves. And I remember talking to my co-author, the ghostwriter, and I started crying. I said, I think I made a mistake. I think I've told too much. People are going to judge me. They're going to judge mentally ill people. And I was just, I remember I was standing in front of my barn and he goes, no, this is going to be good. This is going to be great. And he was right because the response, overwhelming. I thought I'd get some, because I've heard suicide has been described as cowardly, and I've heard it's described as courageous. Well, it's neither. It's dark. It's sick. It's despair. It's no hope. That's what it is. And so going in depth on all my struggles, I learned, and I humbly say this, that I have helped and saved lives. People have come up to me and said, you know what, I was going to do it. And I heard you speak. Or I read your book. And then I started getting emails from current professional athletes in all major sports, saying basically, thank you. I thought I was the only one. Because I do talk about the pressures of playing at, the elite levels. And I went into depth on a lot of things.
Is it pretty isolating at times? I mean, you especially in the 80s, you couldn't share this.
Oh, God, no. Oh,
yeah.
No. And even today, it's hard for people to come out of the closet, so to speak, because of the stigma. But back then, and especially when you're the goaltender of an NHL hockey team, you're supposed to be the rock. You're the mentally tough guy. You can handle the pressure. You can handle wins, losses, a bad goal, all that.
Because they're credited to you. I didn't realize this. Wins and losses, they go towards the goalie.
Yeah, they don't go. Yeah, not the team. Well, they go to the team too, but you know what I mean. Yeah. They don't go to the left winger. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure in pro sports, and people think we got it all together. And I read these articles where guys get in trouble, but I do know guys, and it hasn't been as well published as the domestic abuse athlete. But I do know that there's athletes that have really struggled with mental illness. Get back to my point is people think we just got the world by the tail. Yeah. I didn't make a lot of money when I played, but I loved the game and I was at the elite level. So that was good enough for me. Now they look at players that are making millions and millions of dollars. And they just think they don't look at him as a human anymore. Like they're just like, well, this guy's rich. What's he got? What's his problem? Well, they're human too. And they do struggle. And mental illness is not immune to professional athletes. I mean, it's there. Everybody, every walk of life.
You've had, as we talked about, a long mental health journey, probably from when you were a kid with OCD, which actually helped you develop some of your skills and things. But what have you changed your mind about as when you first, as you've learned more about mental health? What have you changed your mind that if you could go back, you'd tell yourself something different?
We touched on it back when I was, younger and going through it. There was such a heavy stigma. Mm-hmm. And the stigma is still there. I'm not going to lie, but it's not near as bad as it was. People are, well, the fact that I'm here speaking at Concordia, the college thought enough of their students to, hey, let's talk about this. Let's bring in somebody. It's just that I wish back in my day I could have, and the team, when I was really struggling, I took a leave of absence because I almost died. I did overdose on some painkillers and alcohol, not on purpose. I had a reaction, but it was like, we're not talking about that. Clint's just got, whatever, he's got ulcers. He's got ulcers.
Ulcer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, getting back to what you're asking. I just wish that I could have came out and just got the help, that I didn't have that guilt and shame of being mentally ill.
Do you want to expand a little bit? Because I hear our students talk about this sometimes, the guilt and shame in life. What kind of, when we say that, what comes up for you?
Well, I think mental illness is perceived as a weakness rather than a sickness. And, for me, I have a chemical imbalance of the brain. I don't produce enough serotonin. My brain does not do that. Yeah. So I have to take a serotonin booster to get me to where I should be. Now, you tell me, Gilbert, what's the difference of a diabetic taking insulin to regulate, their sugar levels?
Yeah.
It's a different organ. That's all. But there's that stigma that you're actually a weak person if you have mental illness. And if you do it scientifically, or, let's talk about the organs, pancreas versus the brain. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What's the difference?
Yeah.
But the perception is that we are mentally weak. And I will tell you one thing, Gilbert. I look back in my life now. I never thought I was this, I was very insecure, even though I played in the NHL. Every day I fought for my job thinking, I might get sent to the minors or whatever. And then being a professional goaltender, you have more influence on the win or the loss of a game. You could be the hero or the GOAT more than any other player on the ice. So there's a lot of pressure there. Looking back now, I dealt with that pressure all the while I'm struggling with mental illness and insecurities and, just this total emotional distress. I was one tough son of a gun. I didn't think so at the time, but I look back now and go, wow, I don't know how I did it. I really don't.
And you dealt with that, the mental health part. But you also shared even some of the, like you said, you broke your nose 11 times.
Yeah, I quit counting, but I got up to 11. Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, that's just one.
Well, I've had like, I would rather have, and I've had many surgeries. I've had, my back and knees and neck and, a lot of pretty big surgeries. Yeah. And so I'm talking, I know what physical pain is, and people do because we all experience it. I would take a broken back any day of the week than go through the mental illness that I had, at least the severity that I had it. I mean, I was very mentally ill.
Well, one thing in the Townsend Institute, we talk about, we have this growth tree model, and we look at the soil, and how God, is growing us and using us. And when we look at grace, truth, and time, and it looks like it took a lot of time for you to be kind of comfortable with talking about the mental illness and being able to share this.
Yeah. I think when I really started to get public, I was still in the NHL, but I was a coach.
Okay.
And that's when I was starting to get interviewed and kind of more and more disclosure on and more in depth on what I went through. So yeah, I played, 15 years pro, 12 in the NHL. And, I talked, but not like outwardly, in depth. And then I coached for a number of years, and then I started to get these interviews, and and that's probably how the book came about as well. That I was getting these newspaper interviews and radio and podcasts and people responding. And that's when I went, maybe I should write a book,
Yeah.
People are interested. People do suffer. I am not the only one. I am not alone,
Yeah.
Because you think you are.
Yes. Yeah. The devil convinces you you're alone.
I honestly cursed God. When I was in my anguish and pain, I said, why, God, why would you do this? Why will you give me this? Give me a broken arm. Put me in a wheelchair. Seriously, put me in a permanent wheelchair. I'd rather be physically disabled than go through that pain. So I try to paint a picture for people that when people really are in a deep, dark, mentally ill state, it's that devastating.
Yeah.
That you'd rather be in a wheelchair. I'm obviously speaking for myself.
As you think about you were in that place where it just felt that debilitating. So I kind of want to turn for a minute. I want to ask a couple questions here because you did play in NHL for a long time. You played against a lot of guys. Who was the worst guy to face in an NHL? Because you're a goalie. You see all these guys coming down at you.
Yeah. Mario Lemieux, because I played in the Eastern Conference, so we saw him more than Gretzky. Okay. He could just light you up, single-handedly. And Gretzky on the Western Conference. But that Edmonton Oiler dynasty that they had in the 80s, man, if you were the starting goaltender against them, you just hoped that you could finish the game without getting pulled. They were that dominant and that offensively just magnificent.
You didn't invite your family to those games, right?
Well, because I grew up in Alberta, I go to Edmonton and that's where the Oilers were. And so they were all there to see me embarrassed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love it. One other thing, you have had, really a fascinating life that goes beyond hockey and even mental health, because you kind of did another right turn. Now you do equine dentistry and chiropractor.
Well, yeah. I mean, you go NHL hockey player is a horse dentist and a chiropractor. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But, I was coaching and I was coaching in the minor leagues and they hired a new GM and the GM comes in and he's like, we might sign you. We might bring in a new guy. I'm like, all right, I understand how the game works and that. And it dragged on and all of a sudden it's July, middle of summer, and all these vacant coaches jobs were getting filled up. And I'm like, I still am limbo here. So I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm not going to be a victim to this game and to the politics and all this. And then I went, okay, Clint, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I know horses. I know hockey and I know horses. So I checked out a equine dentistry school. And I thought, let's do it. So I never did get hired back to that position, that job. And it was funny because I went through school and everything, and I'm in school, and then I get hired as an NHL goalie coach. And I'm like, you guys wouldn't want me as a minor league coach. Now I'm in the NHL, and I'm going to school to be So I finished school. I started to practice mostly in the off seasons, and I've done that for 25 years, I think now, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've had many coaching jobs in the NHL, and I always maintained my equine practice. And now that I'm totally out of hockey, that is my full-time job.
Is equine dentistry and
I do work for a colleague of mine, Brian Peck. He's a good friend and colleague. He's a veterinarian, and we do a lot of cattle and horses. So we're basically large animal vets that go around, and we go to a lot of big ranches, some famous places. I met the series Yellowstone. I know one of the horse. Yeah. You meet some pretty cool cowboys and that. Yeah.
Wow. As we're getting to wrap up, one thing we always ask all of our guests here on the Townsend Institute podcast series is, hey, what's a tip that you have for our listeners today that you want them to walk away with after hearing you speak?
Well, I think I've said twice on this show so far that very insecure. I'm a very insecure person, even today. And I would encourage, to answer your question, to love yourself. Love others, but really try to love yourself. Embrace your insecurities. Embrace your because believe it or not, again, this even goes back to me talking to people with mental illness. Me too.
Oh, yeah.
So if you think you're insecure, folks, you're not alone. I think we all are insecure, and we have to accept, I think, what God gave us,
Yeah.
Some he blessed some people with great acting skills and beautiful looks and athletic ability. But he's also, and I was not blessed with this, I'm not a smart guy. I struggled in school. You
said that you did not enjoy school.
No, I hated it because you hate the things that you're unsuccessful at. If you don't have success, you're not going to like it. And I never had success in school. I always struggled. I should have been left back a grade probably. And so school was something I hated, detested, didn't want to go to. It caused me so much anxiety. So I wasn't good at it. So getting back, we've all got our gifts and we all got our faults.
Yeah.
and embrace both and just try to really, really love yourself. And it's work because it's hard. I'm speaking from experience and I'm 62 years old and I'm still working on myself.
I love that. Love yourself and your insecurities. Because I'll admit, I was walking here and going, man, after hearing your story, I'm feel like an imposter syndrome. And you have been fantastic to talk to, Clint. I mean, this has been wonderful. And so thank you for sharing all this and your story and being vulnerable and writing this book and just being open to wherever God is leading you.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. I talked about that today in my talk. We pray to God. God, help me, get me over this. Do this for me and everything. But we forget to listen, and we just want Him to do it. Yeah, usually He'll help you do it.
Yeah.
But we got to listen, and I call them God shots. We get them all day, every day. We got to pick up on it.
Yeah, God shots in life. Wow. Well, this has definitely been a God shot for me, getting a chance to do this today. A real honor. And thank you again, Clint, for coming down here.
My pleasure, Gilbert. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning in to this special episode of the Townsend Institute podcast series. We thank Clint for sharing about his personal experiences, both the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. This episode is meant to serve as a depiction of one person's journey and battle with mental illness. If you are facing the same or similar issues as Clint, we urge you to seek professional help from a doctor or licensed mental health counselor. And again, if you or anyone you know is having thoughts of suicide, contact the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988.
Special thanks to Gadesalabawa, CY alumni, for the Tips Podcast music. If you enjoyed the Townsend Institute podcast series, head to our website, cui.edu/Townsend, to find out more about the certificates or bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degrees offered through Concordia University, Irvine. With programs in organizational psychology, mental health counseling, executive coaching consulting, and organizational leadership, we have a variety of faith-based programs dedicated to helping you fulfill your academic and professional goals, all while further developing your competence and character. Again, that's cui.edu/Townsend.